welcome back. My name's Amy and I have three boys, 8, 5 and 2.
And I'm Claire, and I've got two little ones, Harry, age 5, and Olivia, age 2.
Last time we spoke about making the decision, what got us to that decision, and now we're going to go on to what the first year was actually like. Things that we learn, memorable
That's my
moments,
nervous laugh.
yes, and some advice for new home educators at the end. So if you're new to home education, stick around until the very end.
We've got you. We've got you.
And we've got some advice that we probably would have benefited from when we were first embarking on this journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I wish that I had something like this 12 months ago.
Yeah. And yeah, me too. And that's why I started. That's exactly why I started the YouTube, because I
Yeah.
was looking for it and only could find it in America, or that were doing things totally differently to me, or that just wasn't a type of video that I would want to watch
And
because
you
this.
almost want to hear as well, like, just the truth, like,
Mhm.
will be really real on how, like, you feel and how, like, the whole journey has been. And it's not easy. And you kind of kick yourself every day and wonder if you've made the right decision. But
Yeah. Oh, every day, yeah.
yeah, complete. So how was the first year for you? Like that first few days, how did you feel? Like was you did you just once you'd made the decision you felt that relief?
I remember being at like a toddler group, like a stay and play. It was on a Wednesday just before they broke up for school holidays for February half term on the Friday. And I remember sending the email while I was in playgroup on my
Oh
phone and
goodness.
just thinking, oh my God, I can't do this. And it felt like, because I was talking to somebody there and they were like, you've just got to send it, just send it and you'll feel so much better. Because I was just hovering over it, just kept
Yeah.
rereading it. Like with Ruben, it was September and he'd had his little welcome pack come through to say, oh, it's time for you to come for your settling in days or whatever it was. And I
Okay.
just,
So even though you were already home educated, you still put Ruben's name down for a school.
yeah, because you have to apply for a school in like,
Yeah.
what, April or something? Is it April or March, or it's really early in the year, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. No. Isn't it later on in the year? And they've just been, what are we now? May. So they've just had the
So it would have
intake
been
for
like
this year, haven't they? So
so it would have been like last year, the end of the previous year then, wouldn't it?
yeah,
Because I remember someone
yeah.
saying to me in the I think I was in hairdressers and they were like, "Oh, have you applied for school places?" And I was like, no. She was like, "You probably should do that because the deadline is tonight." And I was like, "Oh shit." Um,
Oh
But
man.
because Ruben was at nursery at
Yeah,
Hudson School and it was obviously an alternative school, we just thought, oh, that's the path that he's going to go down. But then because I'd heard that off this other person, I thought, oh my God, I better just apply for a place just in case. These places that I just knew he didn't he wasn't going to go to, but they were fallback options. Sending that letter was a lot easier because I just sent it and then I thought, well, we're already doing it anyway. So
yeah,
the
yeah,
first few days with Hudson, though, because it was half term, it sort of eased us in gently because I thought, well, he wouldn't have been at school for these 2 weeks anyway. So we're just doing what we'd do if it was half term.
yeah. I guess if you'd already started the home education route with Hudson, that you was already doing the things anyway. So it was just a normal thing for you guys.
With Ruben, it was, yeah.
Ruben.
And I
Yeah.
remember that day there was a home ed trip. I filmed it to Bewilderwood or Bewilderwood. The day we went there was the day that Ruben was supposed to start at school. And I just thought, wow, what a better day he's had than going to school. And
Bless them.
I really haven't looked back. It hasn't bothered me at all with Ruben, other than that first few days where everybody was like, first day at school and all that stuff. That
Yeah.
sort of, it makes you go, oh, everyone's sending their kids to school. Should I do it? But after that first few days, I was just, it doesn't even come into my head anymore. I'm just like, he just doesn't go. He just never will. And he never has. And it's so much easier than with the first one. But I can imagine that if Ruben had been my first, I would feel very differently, because with Hudson, it's a lot different. It was a lot different.
Yeah, the start of his journey was.
Yeah, and I've got him to go off with Ruben. Like we always call Hudson like our test kid, because he's like the one that
What a way.
he's the one that we test everything out on, because
Yeah,
he's the one who has to get to it first, and we're like, well, we don't know what we're doing. We're just maybe
winging
let's
it.
do this, and then
Yeah.
does it work with you? Okay, if it does, then we'll do that with the next ones, and if it doesn't, then we change our tactic for the next one. He's the one who is teaching us how to be parents.
Because they don't come with a manual.
No, they don't.
No,
They don't.
they don't come
For
with
parenting
instructions
or for educating. I have a lot less doubts now than I
yeah.
did. What were yours like? Had you applied for school places?
Yeah, so we applied for, obviously Harry went to nursery, then he went to preschool, so we applied for the school place at the local school. And in my head, because we'd already started to sort of like navigate round what all this home educating was really about, I think in my head I'd made a decision that this is the path that we wanted to go down and was the right path for Harry. But I still questioned it, like up until that very last day. I had the email on my phone and I was like, I can't send it yet. What if he turns around and goes, Mom, I want to go to school. I want to go and get all this, because I had those conversations with Harry the whole lead up to it. Like, I told him what school was about. We watched some videos, we read some books. I went to the school gates, I showed him, and, it was this whole emotion, but I knew that I'd come to a decision in my head, but I was making sure almost that I needed that little bit of reassurance, like speaking to others and that it was right. And I know that the decision was made in my head. I just couldn't press that button because, like we said in the first one, that I was going against the grain. I was going against the norm. And, this was a massive change. And for Harry, he knows no different. But for me and Stav, this was going a completely different path. And we're so lucky that we had the support of each other, because we were both so, set that this is the right thing to do. Like we were together on it. Like we both agreed that it was the right thing. But it was still going against what everybody else was doing, but we did it. We pressed the button and it almost went, okay, it's done. Like it's sent. And we had no interaction whatsoever with the school. Like we had nothing back.
They didn't reply?
No, still to this day, nothing.
Wow.
He was deregistered and that was it. Had absolutely nothing. But it was, we just knew that it was the right way. It was the right thing for him. And it was still hard to do, but it was the right thing.
Yeah. And having that support helps, doesn't it, from the other parent? Because when it was first suggested to us, we had those thoughts, obviously, I can't do that. I'm not patient enough for that. Oh, I'm not qualified enough. I don't know enough. Like all those things that everyone has. But then we got to the decision at very different times. So I was sort of like, yeah, okay, I think we can do this. And Ash was like, no, I am not doing that. I'm not.
Really?
Yeah. Because he doesn't take it upon himself to join the groups, to join the phrase groups, to read the books, to listen to the podcasts, to listen to the interviews, to do all of the research. He just leaves it to me, and he just wings life. Like he doesn't think further.
Laid back.
Meal. So he's like, what are we gonna? No, I'm not doing that. But what we're gonna have for lunch? So,
Brilliant.
but that's why it works. And then he came round to it with me telling him and me showing him things and being like, well, look at this and let's watch this little documentary and watch this thing and look at what this says. And
Yeah.
he wasn't like against it. He was just, he had to come round to the idea on his own. He didn't have a conventional high school education either. And he was out of school for quite a lot. And his mom placed absolutely zero importance on him going to school. Like, just all that she cared about was his happiness. And I used to think when we first met, I was like, oh my God, that's so bad. How can you not? How can your parents not have made you go to school and all this stuff? And now I'm like, good for her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely good for her, because that is the most important thing. And he has turned out, well, he's my favorite person in the world. So
Absolutely.
he has turned out like such a great person, and a lot of people that meet him say that.
Yeah.
And that's testament to his mum and dad as well. And by forcing him to go to school, would they have changed him in any way? He
You think anybody
prioritizes.
else?
He
Yeah.
has such a he has such a strong sense of who he is. So he never follows trends. He doesn't care what anyone thinks of him. He'll just like things because he likes it. Whereas I have never had that. I've always had that, like, oh my God, I need to be validated by external things and I need to ask you, is this okay for me to make this decision? And I'm just constantly.
Yeah.
So you wonder whether that stems from the pressure that I had on me to get to please other people. He had
Yeah.
absolutely no pressure on him to please anybody else. So it's funny how we've both turned out in those two ways after those educations. That was a massive tangent, not about the first year of home ed, but
Yeah. Yeah.
that's how it sort of makes you reevaluate, and the
Question
world's just,
everything.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It does sort of open all that up to you, doesn't it? Yeah, it took us a while to get on the same page. But now he is 100% like, if we can do it,
Yeah.
why not?
So
And
did you start this journey with all the books, with all of the stuff you need, like a pencil case, a pile of books, maths, English, science, geography? Did you start your home education journey with all that prepared to go and like, yeah, we've got it, let's go, we've got it all, we can do this?
no, not really. No, I didn't get any books. I didn't get any workbooks. I didn't get anything at first.
Mm-hmm.
We went to one of a meetup, and there was a lady there who was going out of home ed because her situation was changing. She had to put her kids into school, and she'd brought this
Yeah.
massive bag of books and stuff with her. And I was like, this is literally our first time coming to anything like this. Please give me advice and tell me what to do. And
Yeah.
she just said, if anything, if I were to go back, I would just follow this book.
Yeah.
And she'd had it from America, and it was called Project Homeschooling. And it was all about project-based learning and how one project having one project ongoing allows all of the subjects to be covered.
Mm-hmm.
All age groups can be involved, and it allows them to deep dive into one particular subject. And I sort of read most of that,
Yeah.
and it talks about having resources available to them and stuff like that. So I bought a few extra pens and pencil case and paints and different things like that, but I never followed it because it just wasn't. I was striving to an ideal that wasn't us, and I was then beating myself up because why aren't my kids doing what this book tells me that they should be doing?
Yeah.
Even though I absolutely loved the idea of it and I could really understand how it would work, it just, I don't know, it just didn't work out that way for us.
Yeah.
Did you start out with all the books?
In my head, I was going, right, I need to get an English book, I need to get a handwriting book, I need to get a phonics book, I need to get all of this. When actually, the first books that we actually went and bought, Harry just didn't take to. So we had this big selection, and they were quite colourful and, you know, vibrant and stuff. And he just wasn't interested. You know, he'd much rather have a blank piece of paper and do some drawing or do some colouring, or then we went back to reading eggs. And I've just found that over time, he just didn't, he just felt quite overwhelmed by the books, and probably the overwhelmed of the amount of ones that I put in front of him, thinking that this is what I had to do, you
Yeah.
know, and it just wasn't the case. It really wasn't the case. Um, and recently we've, you know, it's taken us probably the first 12 months to figure out that actually Harry quite likes his CGP books, and they're quite plain, they're quite simple, and there's a system that you can follow, and he likes that.
Yeah.
And it's not sort of like, I don't put the pressure on him to do 4 pages or whatever, and he just enjoys, he might do a page one day, or we might do two of some of handwriting, and you know, and that's okay. I'm good for that. Some days we do nothing,
Yeah.
but we go out and we enjoy stuff. We go to meets, you know, and so the books are not the be all and end all, because, you know, when you actually look at it at school, how much time do they spend sat doing the written work? They learn in other ways, you know, and that's what we're still figuring out. And it'll change as well, and I think that's what's great. You know, Harry's got we went to Argos and got this easel, and it's got a whiteboard on one side, chalkboard on the other, and he just gets so much enjoyment. He'll go up to staff and like go, "Daddy, can you do me some sums?" And like he's doing the sums, like his maths is incredible. It's kind of not my strong point, so I'm a little bit worried about that. But he just has a real love for numbers, and that's great. And I'm going to be honest, that's staff strength. He'll just come up to us and be like, "Daddy, do me some sums on the board, and you know, is that right? And have I got it right? And can I do some more?" And who needs the books for that? You know,
Well,
he's learning so much from that,
yeah.
and that's what makes his journey just so special. And I'm not saying Olivia's going to be the same. You
No.
know, Harry doesn't really, he hasn't found a love for reading yet. And I kind of put a lot of pressure on myself to really find something that he enjoyed. And in actual fact, he just enjoys listening to me read him a story. And, you know, he's picking things up naturally on his own. And now I'm starting to think, you know, click for me, going, that's just how he's going to learn. And don't put the pressure on, you know, we're doing reading eggs and he enjoys that. And well, we're reading a book and I'm like, okay, let's break this word down. He's like looking at it like this, really straining his face. And I'm just like, he just doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
He just doesn't want to yet. And that's okay. And
Yeah.
he might not, you know, find a love for books or find a love for reading for another 6 months. But the more I put the pressure on, the more he's not going to want to do it.
More he's going to resist, isn't he? He's going to push it away. And then he's
Yeah.
not going to develop that natural love for it.
Yeah. I was reading something the other day and it was actually saying, you know, because staff's quite a firm believer that, you know, in Europe, they don't send children to school till they're 7.
Yeah.
And that's for a reason. Like children, their natural ability and their brain doesn't naturally have this love for learning until a little bit later. You know,
Yeah.
here in the UK, we send them really early, and, you know, I guess they have, you know, parents have to work and that. And I get that. But when you have that opportunity to follow their interests or follow their love for something, you know, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And, you know, the thing that I was reading the other day about reading is that the brain doesn't naturally develop a love for reading or this kind of like a natural ability to read until they're 7.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's introduced a lot earlier than before they're ready, you know, some kids, they're ready to read at 5, they're ready to read at 4, you know, and that's great. But most children, they don't want to learn that until they're 7, and they almost, when they're ready to do it, they'll enjoy it. Whereas if you do it before, it's almost like they're never going to find that love, and it's always going to be a chore, a pressure. I'm kind of learning that in our first 12 months, that he's not going to have a love for everything. And that's exactly the same for kids in school. They're not going to all have a love for one subject.
Yeah. Except for
But
you're sort of they're sort of penalized or punished for not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really struggled at school. I didn't like school at all. And for me, it's quite not a dark place because I had friends and, you know, there were some parts of it that I enjoyed, but I there's nothing that I look back on and go, you know, I thrived in school. I loved it, because I really didn't. On the other hand, Stav loved it. Stav really enjoyed school and he had a real joy for learning.
Yeah,
We're still learning what Harry's enjoying. You know, he's been in our lives for 5 years and we're still learning the things that he enjoys doing. And you know
exactly.
what?
But you're
We'll
not
probably
that.
find it and it will change.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by Hudson being our test kid, is like he is teaching us how to be parents, and
Yeah,
he's changing us as much as we're trying to just keep him true to himself.
yeah,
He is changing us as people,
yeah,
and he is the one who is carving the way for his younger brothers. And you do feel like, oh, we've got this. Like, yes, this week was really good. We've got this now. And then the next week is totally different. You're like, oh God, we're back to square one now. He doesn't want to do
yeah.
any more drawing. He doesn't want to do reading. He doesn't want to. Because there was at one point, there was a time where Hudson would read a book to himself before he went to sleep, and now he will not do that.
Mm,
And you feel like, oh my God, I just really wish you would do that again. Please do that. Why don't you do that? So you keep suggesting what you can read a book. Why don't you read a book? Because it takes him so long to go to sleep. He's like, why don't you read a book to yourself? And he's like, no. And we've just got to trust that there'll come a time again where he will want to do that. And
yeah,
again, we have to trust, which is the hardest. That's been the hardest thing for me, is just to trust the process, because you have to trust something that you can't measure.
yeah,
But we only have that need to measure it because of school. We
yeah,
don't measure their learning in the first 5 years. So why do we have to measure it from after that?
yeah,
To trust that they're going to continue to learn, because we are put here to be curious and inquisitive and to learn. But going to school drills that out of you, I find, because you're told this is what time you've got to be here, this is what you've got to learn, this is what's important, and the things that are important to you perhaps aren't important.
and the activity that you're doing that you're enjoying, when that bell goes, you have to stop and
Yeah,
move to the next one.
yeah, no matter what. Yeah,
Yeah, whether you like it or not, it's finished.
exactly. It's a really hard learning curve. I think it's harder for a parent than it is for the kids.
Absolutely, because they know no different.
They don't.
We're conditioned, like we went to school and we are conditioned. We're
Yeah,
conditioned to follow a system and know that that's the only path that everybody should take. Well, everybody's different.
yeah. Do any particular moments stick out in your mind over the past year that have been successes, or I don't like to say failures because they're not failures, but we feel like they're failures at the time sometimes, don't we?
Yeah.
Sort of setbacks, or like things didn't work out how you wanted them to, or
Gosh, that's a tricky one, because for me, the wins in this is the support network that I've got around me.
mm,
So not necessarily friends and family. Family don't necessarily support it, but they're not against me. And my friends are kind of like, you know, oh, take my hat off to you. Like, I don't know how you could do
yeah,
that.
yeah,
But the friends that I've made in this journey, like the other home ed families, like to me is massive. Like this support that everybody comes together and we arrange meets and you know we go out, and for me that's huge. That's the biggest success for us. Harry's social network is now huge. For me it's bigger than if he was at school, because you kind of pick out a few friends and you have that sort of like special connection. But when we go out to these meets, they all just have so much fun. And for
yeah,
me to sit back and see that, them learning naturally, like them choosing to go and play a different game, or, you know, go on an adventure, and in the groups that we've got is
mm,
massive. And I'll forever be thankful for that, because without that support network, I don't know where I'd be right now,
Yeah.
because home ed can be quite lonely if you don't fish for support, like find that those connections outside. And it's people that you might not have otherwise met.
Yeah.
You might not, they might not be your people. But actually when you get out there and you're spending time together, it's quite magical.
Yeah.
What has failed, like you say, not failed but not really worked, probably the amount of books that I've gone through and gone, Harry, here's a new maths book, Harry, here's a new English book, let's do handwriting today. And he's like,
Yeah.
and that's pressure from me, and that's not a failure, that's just me trying to find a system that Harry likes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that he enjoys to do, and that's not really a failure, it's just that, I guess, money spent on things that we just didn't actually need.
Yeah. And whenever I come up against resistance from them for something, like if I get a workbook out and I'm like, "What did you do a workbook?" and they're like, no. I know then in that moment I have to remind myself that this is my conditioning coming out. This is for me to deal with. It's not for them to please me by doing this workbook.
Yeah,
I am trying to get them to please my expectations that society has put onto me and that my background has given me. And it's hard to work through that sometimes in the moment because that fear is so strong of,
yeah,
well, they're not what, but if they don't do this, what if they don't do this? What if they never learn maths? What if they never learn how to spell? What if they never learn how to do handwriting? And but
you're trying to unschool yourself still.
yeah, definitely. Big
Yeah,
time. Big time. But I remember the turning point in our home ed journey was when we met you. When we met you, all of you lot, and then it sort of started to grow. And it was like, these are the people we've been waiting for.
it
Because
really is.
up until that point, we had been going to meets, and it's not you're not just trying to find friends for your kids, you're trying to find people that you want to be around as an adult as well, and you gel with their parents and you
Yeah,
share the same sort of values and beliefs and the way that you parent and all that sort of stuff. We found it extremely difficult in the beginning. We just kept going into the wrong sort of groups for us. They had created such a strong group for them and for their reasons for coming out of school and for their reasons for doing this whole thing and how they do things, and it just wasn't for us. And
yeah,
our kids didn't make friends with their kids, not didn't like not get on, but they just didn't develop that relationship, and we can just tell that we just weren't going to develop that relationship with them. So when we met you and our group sort of started to get bigger,
yeah,
it was, finally we like it was a relief, to be
yeah,
honest, because it
absolutely.
had been months of us
Yeah,
just desperately searching for our people, and it was really hard because we it just didn't seem to be finding them. And I kept seeing on Facebook, like, if the group isn't there, you need to create it. And that's really daunting when you feel like you know nothing and there's people that are in your community that have been doing it for so much longer, and they've obviously already tried to create something and they've created something and it works for them. So what if those people aren't out there for that are like us? That's what it makes you think.
yeah,
And I didn't think I could create it on my own. I couldn't just fathom up a group but out of thin air.
yeah,
I didn't know anybody and I didn't know how to even go about that. There's all these secret WhatsApp groups that aren't secret, but they feel so secret because you have to be invited by somebody who you've met, and then we
yeah,
couldn't meet those people. And we were like, what are we doing wrong? Why is nobody like us? And then we all met and we were like, well, we're going to make this group. And it just sort of happened organically. And now we have like, what,
it has.
70 odd members in our group. And
And
it's,
growing.
yeah, it's, But we have that core group who we know we can rely on and always there and are
Yeah,
always, and that is so
definitely.
that's been a big deal, a big game changer.
It's huge, isn't it? Like without you guys being there to lean on and go, we're having a bad day or we're having the best day, we're going to go out and explore today, you guys come in and it, without that connection, because like you say, like we've got to spend as much time together as a group of parents
Yeah.
as the children have. The children are off like sort of like in their little groups and playing and going to do different things, different
Yeah.
activities, but we're still left as a circle to
I
kind of
know.
mix.
Yeah.
And you have got to find your people, and there are other people out there. And
Mm.
coming into this, it's quite a lonely place. Like it's quite a daunting experience going, oh, I've made this decision and now it's just me and I'm stood alone and there's not
Mm.
like a group of teachers around me. And it's you just got to find your people. And I'm literally thankful every day for finding you guys, honestly.
Hmm.
Literally.
Yeah, I am. Because if it was to go on the way that it was, like we came out in February last year and we didn't meet you until, or was it August in
Yeah.
summer?
Yeah.
So that's like 6 months. And we were starting to think like it was time to think about him going to mainstream school in September. And we were
Because
thinking
that's the main thing, isn't it?
if we can't find any friends
Yeah.
for us and for him, we're gonna have to put him into school. And
Because
then
that's
you
the
came.
first thing, isn't it, that people say to you when you say about home educating,
Yeah.
oh, they're not going to have any
I
friends.
know.
Oh,
I
how,
know.
how would you get on socializing? Well, there's a big wide world and there's lots of people in it, and we're going to go and explore it,
Yeah.
you know. And
Oh,
they have made the best of friends the kids have. And it's
mm.
just wonderful because they all get on.
I think that would be my biggest piece of advice to new people that are thinking about home educating or that are coming into it. Try not to worry, and your people will come to you. And that's the biggest game changer is finding. I would focus mostly on finding your people than finding ways for your kids to learn.
Yeah. It couldn't
Like
have put it
make
better.
friends, make
Yeah.
make more friends, basically. What would your biggest piece of advice to new home educating families be?
Once you've made that decision, to find that support network, because I just think it's just so important. Without that support network, you almost feel on your own and quite lonely.
Yeah,
um I couldn't have put it better than what you said. Find your people before you find your books,
yeah,
because finding your people, you'll naturally find your books.
yeah.
That learning that's in those books is out there with those people. And
Yes. But if someone was listening to this, they'd be like, okay, but how do I find those people? So how would you go about finding people? If you were to go back,
yeah,
how would you go about your first year differently?
social media is huge. So
Yeah.
once you've made that decision, like dig into social media, find the people that are local to you, go on the groups. And even if you just find that one person, they might already be in a huge group that's local. There's so much out there for home educators right now. And
Mm.
it's just about asking the questions. Say your locations. There will be so many other people that right now are thinking the same as you. And
Yeah.
especially now the school groups have come out, everybody will be looking for each other. Be that person to put on that post and go, hi, anybody else ready to
Yeah.
take this journey too?
Yeah.
um, because you're really not alone. There's so many people out there that are looking for their people too. And it doesn't have to be that you're looking for people that are just starting their journey with home education too. There might be a group that have been on the journey for 12 months and they're all out there with open arms. We're not like these little ogres that go, oh, it's our group. We love it. Like the more the merrier.
Yeah.
The bigger
Yeah.
the group, the more fun we have. And everybody in that circle is on different journeys, and just find them.
Yeah.
Just and trust your instincts. Like you as parents, carers, you've made a decision for you and your family. So be open-minded to find others that are doing it too.
Yeah.
What would yours be if you could go back to the very start and do one thing differently and give that advice to somebody right now? What would it be?
don't put any pressure on it. Just have fun. Just focus on the fun.
Yeah.
Find the joy, what actually makes them come
Yeah.
alive, and just dive into that instead of trying to follow a book or follow a workbook or get them to do things that satisfy your fears. That came to light to me because we went to Coventry Transport Museum, and in there they've got this room which is basically just filled with broken electronics
Yeah.
and loads of tools. Well, for Ruben, that's just not his idea of fun at all. For Hudson, he was like, oh, you mean I can smash things and break things up and like take things apart? And like, yep, you can do what you want. And he was in his element, like he just loved it. But if you ask him to write a sentence, he's like, oh God, do I have to? I don't. But taking something apart, seeing
Yeah.
how it works, or just seeing how
Yeah.
it's that really sparked his joy. So now we're going to go to a scrapyard and get a load of and get him a little outside workshop where he can just take broken computers apart and
Love
broken
that.
vacuums or anything like that. And
I love
that's
that.
his learning.
Yeah.
So we just have to trust that they will find their thing and it will be obvious to you. You've just got to trust them and trust that that's the thing that you've got. And you'll probably think, really, really, this? And it just unfolds in that way. That's been hard, but that's still hard for me now. Because I think,
Yeah.
really, what the hell are you getting out of that? What are you getting out of that? Can you do something that's actually learning, please?
In actual fact, though, his brain will be making so many connections and
Mm?
so much learning from that. And the fact that he's found a love for something or an interest, actually, because that interest might change in 12 months' time and then
Oh, it
you've
will.
got to
Yeah,
find it again.
definitely will. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah. But yeah, like you said as well, I would not put too much pressure on myself and I would
Yeah.
make new friends for me. So do it as if you are going out to make friends. You're not going out to make friends on behalf of your kids. You are going out, you're trying to find new friends for you.
Yeah.
And even doing that as an adult is really hard. But if you do that, it makes the journey a lot, it makes the whole experience so much easier.
No, it really does.
Yeah.
It really does. Because, especially for the social side of things, that, each kid isn't going to have the same interest, but yet what they do all love doing is playing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
that is learning.
it is. I think that's a good place to end it. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah.